could be. Yeah, we do have some new faces.
The Parks and Rec Advisory Board meeting is coming to order. It's June 19th, and it is 7 o'clock. Roll call, please.
Mr. Bricker?
Here.
Ms. Cunningham? Here. Mr. Dalton?
Here.
Mr. Hayward?
Here.
Ms. McWhinney? Here. Mr. Rush?
Here.
Ms. Thompson? Here. Councilman Browning? Vice Chairwoman Hibinger?
Here.
And Chairwoman Lash. And I did hear from Councilman Browning. He had a work commitment. He wasn't able to come. And we also heard from Chairwoman Lash today that she was not going to make it in time from her work commitment. Our student is currently, we don't have a student any longer since she graduated. And I am still waiting to hear back from the schools who will be our replacement.
Do you want me to?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay.
Shade Tree too, if you want to put a plug in.
For Hayes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So, do I get approval for the absent?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Motion to excuse.
Motion to excuse Councilman Browning and Chairwoman Lash.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Bricker?
Yes.
Ms. Cunningham?
Yes.
Mr. Dalton?
Yes.
Mr. Hayward?
Yes.
Ms. McWhinney?
Yes.
Mr. Rush?
Yes.
Ms. Thompson?
Yes.
And Vice Chairwoman Hibinger.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Approval of the motion summary for the meeting that was held May 15th. Reminder that you didn't have to be here at the meeting as long as you read the minutes.
Make the motion.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Bricker?
Yes.
Ms. Cunningham?
Yes.
Mr. Dalton?
Yes.
Mr. Hayward?
Yes.
Ms. McWhinney?
Yes.
Mr. Rush?
Yes.
Ms. Thompson?
Yes.
Vice Chairwoman Hibinger.
Yes.
Thank you.
And we will move to public comments. Okay.
I think we have a few people in the audience that might, we have, I think OSU.
Yes.
That was one that I think we could listen to during public comment period. They had kind of, I think we brought it up, they were looking at potentially using the Mingo diving pool for some practices in 2019. So we invited them tonight to kind of maybe give the board a little update on that and what we're looking at there. We've been kind of going back and forth and working with Stacy also, and just kind of seeing what would be needed to make that happen. But they're here to kind of give a little update or answer any questions the board might have.
Yeah, so my name is Mandy Evie. I'm
Sorry, would you mind coming up to the table there? Sorry, we put you on the spot.
No, that's fine.
We'll just need your name and address, please, for the record when you sit down.
My name is Mandy Evie. It's spelled E as in Edward, B as in boy, Y. My address is 1265 Berkeley Court. That's Powell, 43065.
Thank you.
I'm currently the assistant dive coach at Ohio State Diving Club. Next year, from approximately April till September, the pool, McCorkle Aquatics Pavilion, is going to be closed for some retiling of the entire facility. So we're looking for alternatives to where we can practice. I was briefly updated on discussions back and forth of what has been discussed. I believe nothing has been determined. I know that I have notes here from a meeting in May that said that there was possibility of pool time from 7 to 9 a.m. and p.m. That there could be the need for the facility to be updated. Talking to people in our department today, we'd like to have our operations people come out, assess what may or may not need to be done in terms of equipment and being in regulation and things like that. How much that would cost. I know that it was said that we could possibly pay for that. We need to make sure that's within the budget that we have set, trying to get this pool time covered. we cannot actually be billed as improvements or anything like that. We would have to be billed in terms of rental. You'd have to call it that. We can't, to get around university protocol, so to say. We can't say, you know, all the equipment would be yours to keep, to be used in the future, but the way the university works, we would have to say that you were billing us for a rental fee for that. We're not sure exactly if we would need both the 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. time, so that's something that we would finalize in the future if we were able to make this work. I guess it's really, I can answer any questions based on that, but at this point, we'd like to have this as a possibility. We do have a highly competitive team, and to be displaced for that amount of time and to try and find pools of use is very difficult. So, any questions?
So this, you said this is a club and not a varsity sport
This is
tournament?
not the varsity team now. So most of you probably are more familiar with like travel soccer, travel baseball for kids. This is the diving equivalent. We practice year round. We have kids on the national team for USA Diving. We currently have 2 divers about to travel to Junior Worlds to represent USA at Kiev, very high level program, but all the way down to lessons as well. We do basic recreation lessons. We do lessons that feed into our competitive team, and then we have our competitive team. In terms of next summer, we are most likely looking for our competitive team, but possibly our lessons programs too. It depends on costs, times. If it's just lessons, probably not going to get very much interest for a 7 a.m. lesson for small children. So, you know, we need as much information as we can get and, you know, get back to you to make sure that this is something that we can do.
And how many are we talking about that would be using them?
It would depend on the facility, if it stayed as is, if it, you know, if we were able to add boards, things like that. Typically, a practice is about 8 kids per coach. I would say, I believe you guys have 2 1-meters and a 3-meter currently. I would anticipate no more than 2 groups at a time for that. So 15, I would say 20 max. But our competitive team is approximately 35 kids, and we have roughly 100 kids total in the entire program, so it's about 70 or so in the lessons. But our numbers decrease in the summer as most people go to summer clubs to do stuff. Our competitive team is what is consistent throughout the year, so we're mainly looking for time for them. We have also looked at getting time at Denison University during the day. So, but right now our practice schedule is set up that we have kids in the water for approximately 6 hours a day. So any extra time we can find is helpful for us.
What has the feedback been from darts?
They're supportive of it. They've been working with darts. That's who you worked with darts to kind of contact us initially.
I say Jen White has been the contact person. She was coaching tonight till 7. So I'm here kind of filling in. So she's definitely been the one who started this, got the ball rolling.
Got it.
So
My kids are involved in darts.
okay.
So my only thought would be you're coming in the morning when there's already between 85 and 90 kids there. So I just didn't know how this would all.
They don't dive then. My daughter dives. They dive from 9 to 11.
Okay.
So that's why the 7 to 9. time
No.
frame probably
Yeah, from
fell
what
in.
the
That's
notes
why
that I
probably
have.
fell into
And you would know
place.
that better than I.
It's, yeah, it looks like the notes that I have, it says the only time the dive pool would not be open to the public or darts would be 7 to 8 p.m. According to these notes from May 18th.
Yeah.
So
I just don't have divers.
Yeah.
I was just speaking
you
of
should get
swimming.
some. It's way more fun than swimming.
It is, but there's no place local to do it outside of summertime at Mingo
Yeah.
because Ohio State's the only other program. And it's
We have a great
really
program.
far away. If 45 minutes one way, we'd be all over it.
I understand. So I'm in Powell, so I drive a half hour each
Yeah.
way each day.
So it's kids of all ages.
Yes, our youngest
So-
divers are about 7 years old.
So would there be opportunities for Delaware kids to participate obviously it may only be a one-time thing.
No, that's something that we would be open to talking about. It would be most likely having to, maybe set aside time where it's, dedicated to just Delaware kids, and we have a OSDC diving coach there to, run a lesson or a clinic and things like that. That's not something I can guarantee or tell you what, a cost would be or anything like that.
Sure.
But I know that we would be open to discussions about it.
Is the pool normally full at that time? Obviously, if they're looking in April.
Yeah, I talked to Stacy a little bit. Yeah, there's going to be some overlap there, but I think there's some possibilities where we can work out schedules. It's just going to be trying to move the public out of the pool and get the dive team in there is going to be a challenge. But I think it's something we can try to work on and then see what we can come up with.
Not only that, I mean, like physically full of water. I mean, when do you guys fill? If they're looking to use it in April.
Well,
This year was
we
pretty-
understand weather.
Right.
And,
Well, that was my only thought for you is I know that darts, they don't start until the end of May.
Right, my guess
And there were
is.
many mornings that they didn't get in the pool because it was 51 degrees outside.
Right, my guess is, not having been in on the discussions, is that whenever the pool opens, we would look to have those times. That
Right.
we're not looking for you guys to, physically open the pool earlier in April or May for us. It's Ohio, it could be snowing.
Right. Well, that was my only, like I said, because there's oftentimes that, again, they're at the end of May
Right.
and they can't get in. They don't let the kids in because it's so cold.
Right, and I know too that typically we are out of the water for the month of August, so we're probably talking, I'm not positive of this, but probably more June and July than anything. So I'm not sure how early you guys open the pool. I'm guessing around Memorial Day.
Typically, I think.
Yeah, Memorial Day.
Pretty standard for
Right.
the Midwest, so
And,
my guess
and all
is
of our
that-
diving's done. I mean, Grand Champs is the first weekend in August. So all of our divers are done
Right,
by that weekend.
so we wouldn't have anybody likely in the pool unless we, set up clinics or things like that, where that might be an opportunity for, Delaware kids to be able to get in and do stuff because there'd be more time available just because you don't have things going on,
Sure.
we don't, so kind of a precursor to getting in for the fall starting, so,
Right.
and hopefully back at OSU.
Ted, is there any additional liability to the city for something like this?
We would have lifeguards. That would be part of it. We'd work with the YMCA to we have to have lifeguards during those when they're in the pool. So not necessarily. I think it's just we'd be adding to our coverage, and but I'm not sure exactly if there's an increase in our premium or anything like that, but we'd look into that also. And we're kind of assembling all those costs, like what it's going to cost to bring extra lifeguards in, to update the pool to anything they would need. But I think another thing to consider too, and I don't know if diving is going this way, but all like youth recreational sports are going to competitive leagues where you're on travel teams, and you've seen it in basketball. Baseball is doing the same thing. I could see diving kind of doing that, where competitive teams are more of a draw. And if we have a facility that can support that, that's a bonus for us, because you see these softball tournaments, they have these big complexes, and that's the way youth sports is going. I don't know if it's good or bad, but you see it happening more and more. And I could see maybe diving is another sport that could cater to, and if we were able to have the facility to cater to something like that, that might be a bonus for us.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And I saw I messed up that they were later on the agenda, but I just wanted to make sure we got them in there. And also in public comment, is anyone here from Frisbee Golf? Okay, they mentioned they were going to be here tonight too, and if they were here, I wanted to make sure we got them on there also.
So where do we go from here?
Sorry, we can probably just go to, if there's no more public comment. If anyone else have any public comment?
All right. Update of the YMCA.
Stacy Chai, C-I-G-H-E. Do you need my home address?
No.
Do you need the Y address? You don't need to. Just your positions.
Aquatics Director.
Thank you.
So Jeremy's informed me that you guys have already received a report to read over. So just a couple of things to highlight. Dave Stanley is happening Sunday, August 12th. We are really looking for board members to help out and volunteer for that. That is, like I said, August 12th, around 7 a.m., but that would be to be announced. And then Jeremy or Jacob Hitler would be your contact if you're willing to volunteer. And then I forgot to add that Jack Lawrence Mingo Pool will be closed July 16th, July 17th. We're hosting Greater Columbus Swim League Championships. And Sunday, July 29th, we are hosting the Ironman. So that is all I have. Any questions?
What was that last date?
July 29th for Ironman.
Anything else? Any questions? Thank you. Update of the parks activities.
A few things to go over. Well, disc golf, we're still getting some feedback from some residents who we want to look at trying to fit in a disc golf course somewhere in the city. The Wetland Park is a potential site, and looking at some others, because it seems we have a lot of interest with it, and there's a few courses around that are pretty popular, and it can be a draw for tournaments and things like that. So we are moving forward with that. Hopefully we'll have something to, I'm going to work with that group to move that forward and see if we can't find a course here in Delaware. And I'm glad Abby's here tonight. She brought up and I think actually Tom brought it up also too, is I wanted to kind of just run this by the board. I don't know if you're familiar with these bike parks where they have some pump tracks and different things. Lebanon, Ohio did on their landfill site, they created one of these bike parks. And I guess wanted to kind of get your opinion and see if we gauge the community and see if this is something that's an amenity that is an attraction, and we wanted, further research for the possibility of doing one in Delaware. And just kind of get your thoughts and ideas on it. And if you have questions, do you understand, have you seen these bike parks?
No.
I can get some examples next time, but it's growing. Abby can probably speak to it better than I can, but they have a lot of different obstacle courses for bikes almost.
So like a skate park for bikes?
It's kind of a good
Like
example.
a BMX type course?
But not strictly BMX. They do
Sure.
some different things in different age groups. I guess I always look at it as like almost an obstacle course, and then with
There's
some.
one on Alum Creek.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like the one at Allen?
Okay.
Yeah. They almost construct part of the trail with some elevated turns and things like that.
Have you heard of cyclocross? So
Yeah.
Kind of that mix between. Isn't that what they're trying to build at Alum Creek though, across the road from the mountain bike? That no woods? That's like a little. Okay, all right.
It's like a little pump track for kids. I've been on it, yeah. Adults can ride it too, but it's similar, but this would be more like maybe some competition. People would just go there and ride. So just like a little different field and like a single track mountain bike trail that goes through the woods. And you would attract people of all ages, kind of like a skate park for bikes, I don't know.
So is there construction of like cement?
No,
It's wood.
dirt, just from what I saw.
Yeah, you can do. What I've seen is some of the companies they offer. They can build concrete platforms or wood platforms, or and some of it's earth platforms. So there's choices there, some options there, and it gets more expensive as you depending on the material.
And that known woods is pretty popular. I mean, we were out there and there were tons of families there just with kids, and people of all ages, adults were riding on it. So I mean, it's very popular, and I think would have a good interest in the area.
What's it called?
Interesting concept to do with the
A lot of times they're called bike parks.
What's the park you were talking about? Gnome?
Oh, no park.
Like,
It's across from
Gnome, like GN.
GNO, that near the old. it's really cool if you haven't checked it out.
Very cool.
Yeah, your place would love it. Yeah.
Well, I think there's competitive races there. Like-
At Allen Creek there is.
They don't do like race, nothing there?
The
Okay.
Millwood's just opened, and then there's like a short 1 mile trail back, like a beginner trail, and then Allen Creek has phase 1, which is about 6 miles, and then phase 2 is a little bit north.
Okay.
Africa and Cheshire, I think they're like about a 5.5 mile mountain bike trail, so, but that's single track, and that's a little bit different than what this is. But definitely, and that gets a lot of interest. I think you find a lot of interest in it from all ages.
Where would we do this?
Lebanon, Ohio did it on their landfill, so I thought, that, you know, and I think Tom brought it up also, is that that might be a potential site. It's not located right in the city, but it's not too far. And plus, if some of our greenways come about, that could be really connected to the city very well. Kind of wanted to look at maybe possibly utilizing that as a site.
Landfill. Where? I don't know where
It is on the east side. Do you know where the Myers is?
Yeah.
Behind that, and then behind the railroad tracks.
Okay.
So it's back behind Wetland Park, to the south of Wetland Park.
I have,
Wetland Park, is that where the dog park is?
Yes.
I have
correct.
been back there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's back there. We monitor it, and you know, it's maintained by the city.
Mhm.
So you know, if Lebanon, Ohio did it, you know, that there's obviously a possibility to do it. I can't, you know, say for sure that that's definitely a site we can use, but it's something I can look into some more. It sounds like I need to get a little bit more information on exactly what a bike park is and what it involves, and I can get kind of put together something for you to see what that is, and then maybe you can make some more give you some ideas on the, you know, if we want to move forward, look at it, a possible site in Delaware.
Is there a cost? Like how much?
Yeah, absolutely.
I
There's
mean,
always-
but like, I meant to say a cost in mind or what the,
No,
projection
I
would be?
think, you know, in Lebanon, I just looked at it briefly, but it looks like they helped get some sponsors, some local sponsors helped to pay for it. And they also had a very active bike community that I think, you know, kind of propelled it a little bit.
I have some names of people that we'll talk
Okay.
about after the meeting.
Okay, good.
I don't know if combo would be interested. It's a little bit different, but,
Yeah. And there's some grants that we could go after. I think that, you know, you try to do a combination of things to kind of to help move along. But I think the biggest thing is if Delaware has an interest in it, if we have enough biking community members that would want something like that.
okay.
Okay. Another topic I wanted to kind of discuss is some of our agendas aren't action-packed and filled up. One of the things we were kind of discussing was maybe we alternate meetings of the Parks Board every other month. I wanted to get your feel on that. This is something we were going to discuss with our Shade Tree Commission, where we alternate months. So like 1 month we're on Shade Tree, next month we're on Parks Board, and keep going on like that, and see what your thoughts were on that, if that's something you'd be open to, or if you like the format we have now.
You know, I'm guessing that if we went to that, and if we felt there a need to have a special meeting, we convene a special meeting.
Yeah, I talked to Elaine about that. We just have to advertise it, and
It'd be no
Sure.
different than any other meeting we schedule.
Mhm.
yeah.
At a last minute, we have that. We just have to find a time. There's no other meetings.
That's something you want to entertain?
I think that's a good idea.
Okay,
I don't have a problem with it.
okay. Anyone have any issues with that? Okay. I know we emailed Council or Ms. Lash earlier, and she was in favor of it also.
Mhm.
So, okay.
And that would start, when would that start?
Next month, we would, Elaine's chart here. Next month, we would do Parks Board again, and then the following month, and I got to discuss this with Shade Tree Commission, which we meet next week. So we'll discuss that with them also and see if they're open to it.
Is it dependent on Shade Tree
It's kind of
or?
depend on both boards. I mean, we kind of need
Okay.
both boards to, if they're open to it and if they want to move forward with that.
Mhm.
So, yeah, a lot of time, you know, like, I think last month we canceled. Did we cancel Shade Tree last month because we didn't have any plans to review? So that typically, if there's no plans to review and there's nothing on the agenda, we'll cancel that meeting. And a lot of times we can do that. But I mean, meeting every other month is not out of the realm of possibility with that committee too. So I'll discuss that with them and we'll let you know on that then. Another item I wanted to bring up was, so we've talked about the Ross Street Park. We're looking at moving our operations facility out of there and over to our main facility on 440. So we are going to be meeting with SWCI and the Community Coalition to kind of see what their thoughts are. We've done some community polls and gotten some feedback from the community on what they would like to see in that park. And I think I mentioned to you before, passive activities were something that was kind of the high on their priority list. So we're going to move forward with that, looking at, possible amenities that, like festival fields and things like that. Nothing like active sports, like no baseball field. That's just not something they wanted to see out there. But we have some buildings out there, and some of the Community Coalition has expressed some interest in those buildings, and just kind of wanted to see what your thoughts were on that. How would you like to see that park developed? Would you like to see more green space out there? Would you like to see the buildings be utilized by some of these entities, or do you have any thoughts on that as we move forward with kind of the master planning phase of that park?
What's your plan? If you would you demolish the buildings if they weren't used?
That's kind of what the path we're looking at now. We've kind of we're looking at doing that because we don't want to maintain these buildings. Some of these buildings are getting kind of old, and but if on the other hand, if the Community Coalition has the funds and they have a use for those buildings, we're definitely open to entertaining that. And if it can become a use, I guess our thoughts are we don't want to continue to maintain the buildings. If they have a use for them and they can, maintain them and, we lease them to them or sell them to them. I'm not sure which way we go, but we kind of maintain a little bit of the SWCI building, and we just don't want to be the landlord or the maintenance person for those buildings. We will be keeping a cold storage area over there. That'll be where we just need that facility now because we store a lot of things in there. Something like the health department, we have our sprayer in there. So we do need to keep that part of the facility, but that'll be separated off from everything that SWCI does. And but I guess that's our thoughts. I guess if we were to decide in a vacuum tomorrow, we'd probably take down the buildings that we're using now for the parks operations. But we're definitely going to talk to the Community Coalition and SWCI and just kind of see what their thoughts are. But just kind of wanted to see what your thoughts were, if you had any, on that future development of that area.
I guess that's where I was going with it was, if you were just going to tear them down, but they agree to maintain them and they're not in the way of anything, then,
okay.
I'm okay with keeping them as long as they understand it's their job to maintain them.
Yeah, and we'll definitely make that clear.
Where are the buildings in relationship with the space?
So do you know where Ross Street Park is? The buildings are basically directly west of that. I think it used to be a farm implement building before the city took over, and so it's definitely not a new building. So there will be some work involved if they do, depending on what use they're looking at it for. It's suited our needs. We park a lot of trucks and equipment in there, so it's suited our needs. But depending on what they're looking at it for, it's going to take some work and some money to update it. We'll go ahead and meet with them and just kind of come back to this board with what their recommendations are and what their thoughts are, and maybe get some more feedback from the board once we get to that point.
Any idea what they wanted to use the building for?
And I don't know, this is initial discussions. They talked about, kind of a senior center with a potential pool in there and all this. And I just really need to make them understand the costs that are involved with something like that. Because again, it's not a building that's finished or on the inside or anything like that. So I know it's going to take, So that's why we just need, and again, those are initial discussions, is kind of, first thoughts. So we'll discuss that with them more and just kind of see what we can do and what we can come up with.
How tall are the roofs?
The roofs are pretty tall. I think they've got about 14-foot clearance on the ends, and it's got a pretty flat slope, so it doesn't get that much taller, maybe 20 feet in the center.
If you look at some of the pictures that Brent Carson has at the fair, you can tell there used to be big farm equipment.
Yeah.
If the buildings I'm visioning and
Yeah.
thinking of.
Those are probably the same ones.
Maybe you can put a couple tennis courts.
I know.
I don't think they're tall enough. I don't think they're big, because we looked at even the potentially, like if we took the walls off and did a basketball court that was kind of a covered in there. But again, they didn't want the active sports, and the roof just wouldn't work for even a basketball court. So I don't know. Tennis would be kind of tough in there.
No lob shots.
Oh,
Yeah.
bummer.
Okay.
Pickleball.
Don't say that.
That is
Another item I want to bring up is the Bell Avenue Park. We got a donation at the end of, or the beginning of this year from an individual who lived out there, and she wanted to make a donation. I think it was $12,000 to the Bell Avenue Park. And so we're moving forward with getting some costs together to try to update the playground, a few amenities on the playground and the sidewalk on there. It's kind of been it's an older park, and we just want to do a few minor updates using that money. So we'll bring a master plan next meeting with that, with some costs and how far we can make that money go. It's our goal there. I don't know if you're familiar with Bell Avenue Park. It's right on there. It's just a neighborhood park, but it's got some, it's used by the neighbors, so it's good. You're probably aware that our golf course, the beer sales, has gone through. We have our permit into the state at this point. We've been getting questions with some of the hours that we're going to sell alcohol. We've consulted with some other courses, particularly Gahanna, which is almost the exact course of ours. It's a par 3, 9-hole course, public course. And I think one of the biggest questions is when the alcohol is sold. Right now, we're kind of just thinking when it's open, because that's what a lot of golf courses do. When the golf course is open, it's sold. And Gahanna specifically, they leave their course open a little bit longer after. So like this time of year, you might get done with 9 holes at 9 o'clock at night with the light, and they'll stay open a little bit more if the golfers want to stick around and have a beer afterwards. So, but I guess what we're looking at now, and we're thinking of proposing is we open in the mornings at sometimes 7, and I mean, you could buy a beer at that time if you really wanted to. We weren't really going to put restrictions in the morning, but maybe a half hour before the last tee time, we close alcohol sales. But I wanted to kind of see if you had any thoughts on that. If you have anything to add, or what you think.
Well, if you restrict it to a half hour before your last tee time, then you're not going to stay open late.
No, we wouldn't stay open late.
Yeah, I guess I don't know many people that hang out at the golf course. I'm sure there are.
Right.
And most of the time you end your round and stack up and go home.
Yeah, especially at that golf course. It's not really we do have some leagues that play out there though. So there may be some interest there, but we're kind of going to try to get some feedback from the users of the golf course too.
And maybe this isn't even a valid question, but I'm going to try to ask it anyway. Do you have a time frame on your liquor license? Do you know what I'm saying?
Like when we sell it?
Yeah, like does it?
Basically when we're open.
I was going to say fall back on that, but I guess you can't in this case.
Yeah, I mean, just trying to, calling around to other courses, that's when they sell it, is when they're open.
I think that makes the most sense. I mean, if you don't sell at 7 a.m., you're missing sales, as sad as it is to say.
Yeah, I mean, there are the people that, yeah. I mean, we are going to institute rules where we're going to bring in trainers that will train our staff on, IDing people, noticing if someone's had too much and not selling anymore to that person, just to make sure our staff is up to speed on that. We're also going to, the other thing that we'll train them on is we're a 9-hole course. If someone wants to come up and order a case of beer, that's not going to happen. It's 9 holes, 3 or 4 beers, and that way if you drink 3 or 4 beers, you come back up and they make the decision whether you could have some more or not. I mean, just, some common sense, rules that we'll kind of put in place with the staff. But again, it's not it's purely for enjoyment for the people that want to indulge when they go out and golf. But we are going to put those in place, but the hours are something we're still discussing.
I think if you would choose to leave it open later, like you mentioned, Gahan, I think you open yourself up to more issues of judgment by your employees that could cause trouble.
That is unnecessary, I think. Beat-ups isn't that far away.
Right.
Or anywhere downtown.
Yeah.
I would say just when you're open.
Yeah.
That makes sense to me.
Okay.
Because I agree. Like, I think some people take a day off of work, and if they get to the course at 8 a.m. and you don't sell until noon, that's probably disappointing and missing sales.
Yeah, there's people that work third shift that come in early in the morning, and that's their nighttime. I mean,
I would, when you're
or if
open.
you play a course on Father's Day and find out it's a dry township on Sundays, you get a little frustrated.
Sounds like a personal story.
Just saying, people do it all the time.
Yeah, I would just, then it's just easy to, when we're open.
Okay.
Makes sense to me.
But I think it makes sense if you're going to do it that way to cut it off a half hour before the last tee time or at the last tee time.
I would say at the last tee time, because you're missing out on sales too.
The half hour before those three groups are coming in. But if you cut it off after the last tee time, I think that makes sense.
Okay. We'll get
because
that.
No one's going to leave the 5th hole to come buy more beer anyhow.
Yeah. So if our permit comes through, we will get all those in place and bring those back to the board and make sure we have that there. That was all I had. Sorry, this is kind of long, but
It's all good. All right, we'll move to the recommendation of smoking restrictions in the park.
So based on our last discussion, I've kind of presented this draft, the proposal for the smoking ban in the parks. I think this is kind of what we've talked about, and see if you want to move forward with this.
And, I had one thing on G that this is probably nitpicking it, but at first sentence, I mean, technically it's saying if they enter or remain in violation, then they're guilty of a criminal trespassing. And maybe just a way to soften it, I was thinking a failure to adhere to this section and remain on the premises. In other words, if someone's smoking and someone tells them not to, and they quit smoking, then they're all right. Where this first sentence kind of says if you do either enter or remain, you're in violation.
I will say G is an existing, and it kind of pertains to hours of parks also, not just smoking.
Okay.
So yeah, that kind of refers, and it's basically our dusk to dawn rule. So if someone's in there after hours, that allows us to, it is criminal trespass at that point. So it's not specifically geared towards smoking. The red portion is what we kind of inserted into our existing ordinance.
Okay.
To kind of cover the smoking. I just wanted to clarify that.
That makes sense. So that G is actually existing language.
Yeah, and it's and the reason the G is red is because it's an additional one.
My question is, without having somebody there all the time kind of monitoring, or, I mean, how do you catch somebody? Not that you're trying to, you know what I mean?
The way I would
How
see
does
it
that work?
is if someone was smoking in a group of people and they were asked by staff to please refrain from smoking in this group, or someone in that group said there's someone smoking over there, it's really we really rather them not, and they were asked to refrain or go remove themselves from that group and smoke where it wasn't affecting so many people. and they refuse to do that, and it just kind of keep going to a different level until, if they became like, I'm going to smoke in front of this group of people, whether they like it or not, then maybe the police will be called in and they would just be asked to leave the park. It's not something like, we're not going to try to arrest people if they light up a cigarette in the park. It's not something we're going to be policing all the time. It's going to be mainly when it's brought to the attention of staff or the police.
It's something that hopefully would just eliminate a great deal of the problem.
Right.
Well, maybe not eliminating completely, it will lessen it.
Exactly. Hopefully curb that a little bit more.
I think it's good. I think the verbiage is good. I think it
Yeah.
addresses everything we've talked about over the past couple of meetings.
I think so too.
And I think it's in a fairly non-abrasive way, just basically saying this is all Delaware parks are non-smoking and all facilities inside the parks.
And the public will be,
Well,
shown
we'll know.
this, or how will they know about this?
We will post new signs, especially around like the ball fields where we tend to have some of the problems. We'll post some signs and just educate the public also, like especially like I know when the YMCA does their field team meetings, just make sure the parents know that smoking is not allowed in the parks. I mean, that's going to be the biggest deterrent, I think, is if we can educate the parents in the leagues and soccer and baseball and everything that's done in the parks.
So I think this is something that's kind of a hot topic right now because I've obviously been coaching for 20 years and I've noticed I've probably been in 15 to 17 parks in Columbus, Indiana and Illinois in the last 4 weeks, and it's everywhere. I mean,
Yeah.
You can't walk into a park without a sign that says it's non-smoking, and it's on the backstop of every field. And so I certainly think that we're not unique in this, and it shouldn't be news to people if they've been anywhere else. It shouldn't be that hard to enforce.
We have signs as you enter the park as well. Is that correct?
Not necessarily as we enter, because we don't have all our rules posted at the enter. Now, we are looking at putting up some kiosks, and we'll put our rules on there, so it'll be posted on there and made our neighborhood or community parks. But, I think where we have problem areas, and, this whole thing arose with some baseball games and large crowds of people around there and people smoking there. So I think that's the areas we'd like to address first to try to, limit that there. And, at some of the adult softball games, it's not really an issue out there, and we're not really, it's not something, if it becomes something more, then yeah, I think then we address it then. But, trying to address the areas and posting it in our parks and probably more of the education, just educating the public.
What's the rule at the pool? I mean, obviously you shouldn't smoke in the pool, but that's where I have really noticed it lately.
Right now you can smoke, right?
You have to be outside of the fence.
Outside the fence?
Oh. Well, they definitely weren't 2 days ago.
Yeah, we've been noticing a high increase of the vapes, like the little e-cigarettes and stuff. So all we can do is just tell them that they have to be outside of the fence.
Well, and if this was adopted, if city council will move this forward, then it wouldn't even be outside the fence. Wouldn't be in the park.
That'd be delightful.
Yep.
I think the best example is just like the alcohol policy. I'm sure people still do it,
Yeah.
but if it's in your face, then obviously they're going to say something. If it's bothering somebody, you can legally say something that's going to follow in the same lines as that.
And we talked about it before. If someone's walking along the trail and there's nobody around and he's smoking, nothing's probably going to happen to that person. So
do you need a
nothing that
motion
would-
from us then to?
yeah,
to
it
carry
would.
that forward?
If this is the language we want to move forward with, it'd be a motion from this board to city council at that point.
So get a motion to approve the wordage of the smoking.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Roll call, sorry.
Mr. Bricker,
Yes.
Ms. Cunningham,
Yes.
Mr. Dalton,
Yes.
Mr. Hayward,
Yes.
Ms. McWinney,
Yes.
Mr. Rush,
Yes.
Ms. Thompson,
Yes.
Vice Chairwoman Hibinger.
Yes. Okay, so we've already had the OSU diving.
So can I ask, when will this be presented to City Council?
July,
Probably the first meeting
First meeting in
in July
July.
at this point.
First meeting in July?
Sometime in July, we hope. We're working on the agenda already. That will go out on Thursday, so time's kind of short.
yeah, and if any of the members want to show up at that meeting, it'd probably be helpful.
That's what I was thinking, and I know several people who would be very happy to attend and voice their opinion.
Okay, good.
And so I would really like to know when it is.
So can you just let us know?
Yep, we
which
can let
Yeah.
you know in
it's
an
on?
email. We'll send it out when Elaine puts that on the agenda. But yeah, it'd probably be the first meeting in July, right?
It's the plan.
What's that date, Elaine?
Yeah.
Do you know what that date is?
July 9th.
It's 7 o'clock also, right?
Yes.
All right. We'll move to staff comments.
Nothing really to add. Our operations team is trying to keep up the mowing. We're trying to get the right-of-ways and everything mowed. They've been doing a good job of that because it's grass is really been growing this year. But our seasonal staff is on. The downtown pots are in, so everything's kind of up and going right now. So we're full-fledged summer mode right now.
Hey, Ted, do you plan on doing anything with mosquito spraying?
Yes, we just contacted the health department, and they are going to spray the pond at the Veterans Park. I know because that one was getting kind of bad. Were there any other areas that you noticed?
Oh, that's where I live, over in that
Okay.
area, so that's,
They might have already done that because we
Okay.
did that. I don't know when they were. Yeah,
I walked out of the house this morning and got attacked.
yeah. I was gonna say you can get carried
Walking
away
the
out
dog,
there.
So,
Yes. If you know of any other spots, please let us know, and we can always work with the health department on that.
I have a message from Mayor Riggle also. I actually forgot to talk to you earlier about it when we had our powwow, so I apologize. She was approached at the Now Festival this weekend about a gentleman who's interested in starting a kayak program through the city, possibly to maybe do education. Is that you?
That's what.
Well, wonderful. So I don't know if you want to maybe come
Well, I
up
didn't
and
know
see.
really what the protocol was. So you
Well-
said tight until something was said.
Okay, well, I said it, so if you want to come up, maybe just tell us your name and address if you'll come up to the microphone, please. I'm sorry.
My name is Sammy Spezia. I'm the president of the national charity organization, the American Kayak Association. We are headquartered in Columbus, Ohio. I reside at 2692 Jordan Avenue, Minerva Park, 43231.
Thank you.
What
What was your last
I'm not
name?
really sure. I didn't really have anything prepared.
If you maybe want to recap your conversation with Mayor Riggle and then maybe what you were thinking that might help.
We've been involved first and foremost in the Ironman for the last couple of years. I've been the captain of the Ironman. We are the Water Angels that are out there. We're going to be out there again this year. We're doing the Mingo Man this Sunday, as well as all the others that we do in Central Ohio. We partner with a lot of other organizations, and we've worked a lot with the children of our communities, underserved, as well as the adaptive communities, and bringing them awareness to the water. Safety, education, and stewardship is pretty much our focus, if you will. We've many programs in Columbus. We work with the Y, we work with Parks and Recs. We work with a lot of other entities, but there's nothing truly going on in the city of Delaware or the county that we've seen, but we want to be a part of. So I guess with that and opening, we want to make something happen up here. We've got a lot of wonderful programs, as I said, down in Franklin County as well as across the country. We want to be able to utilize one, you've got more shoreline than most counties in the state. That's obvious. You have one of the recreational waterways, be it the Olentangy. That obviously is only in a certain flow, but it is, as some of you may or may not know, whitewater mecca. People from all over the state come to this river when the dam releases, high tide, if you will, things of that nature. So it could be a drawing place for people outside of this community. Limestone Park is another area that we've possibly looked at where we have educational programs there on a regular basis, bringing people out, putting them into the water. We're all ACA, American Canoe Association trained certified instructors at many different levels, so we can bring that education to the community as well. So there's a lot of things we can bring here that we think is a need. We worked, like I said, with Mayor Riggles, worked with Christine just recently on the Now Fest. We were up there with the booth and trying to just feel out what the temperature was, if you will, for this the community and seeing what your appetite was and what you wanted to see happen. So that's kind of why I'm here, just kind of get a feel for what everybody, the interest is in the community.
What was the name of your organization again?
American Kayaking Association. We're a national 501c3. Been in existence since 2009.
Okay.
We work a lot with government grant funding that we have. We have access to 100 kayaks, sit-ups, sit-on-tops, things of that nature, so we can bring that environment, basically anything that people want to have access to, we can provide that. We can even go as far as special Eskimo roll classes, teaching people how to roll their kayaks and take it to another level. So there's not much we can't cater to the community with regard to their requests.
So you said you work with youth and even...
We work with youth, underserved, we work a lot with communities, work a lot with Y, we work with the adaptive community. We're partners with TASK, I don't know if you're familiar with them or not. We do have adaptive certification, certified instructors on our staff. So we're able to pretty much provide whatever the community is looking for in the form of a program.
Can you share maybe what program, what that would look like? So you say you serve youth and,
It would be anything from a simple quick start program where we teach them basic paddle strokes, how to get in and out of their kayak, how to hold their paddle, different strokes from sweeps and reverses, things of that nature. We bump it up a little and take them into how to self-rescue, how to get out of their kayaks, how to get back into their kayaks, how to help others do the same. So basically just brings awareness, teaches people about the safety of fire seats, life jackets, things of that nature. Only 21% of the adults in the country are noted to wear life jackets, yet 57% of adults die from not having them. So when you look at the numbers, they're somewhat staggering, and the education is simply not there. We're working with the MORPCs now, Mid-Ohio Parks and Recs, in developing a Blue Wave program. It's an initiative that's going to include the Old Tansy, Scioto, Big Walnut, Darby, as well as Allen Creek. We've already pinpointed all the access points within those rivers. We're going to have educational, we're going to have signage at the access points, we're going to have signage along the way. We're looking at a program that's going to allow us to educate the individual at the site with the QR code that will allow them to, with their phone, look at the QR code. There will then be a scale. They'll be able to look at the gauges put out by the USGS, which is the government, that allows us to understand what the current flow is for that river. It also allows us to understand what the risks are with that velocity. So with that, we would have the QR code that would be linked to, let's say, the Main Street, put in up north of Delaware, Cherry Streets and other put in and so forth. That would allow us to understand. If they would look at that, then they would see the chart and say, okay, we're between 0 and 200 CFS. That's for beginners. That's okay. I can put my children out on that. Everybody's going to be safe. And they would be able to look at the scale and not have to be educated by any means in understanding what is and what isn't safe for them or their families and so forth. It's amazing how many people we see. We run the concession downtown at the side of the mile. If you see people down there paddling, that's our concession down there. We do the Arts Fest, we do the Pride, we do all the festivals in the city. We see more people coming off the water than they're going on the water without any means of safety, security of any sort. And that's, again, lack of education. So that's where we're coming in, some of the programs that we're implementing. So it's quite involved with everything that we're doing, but it all is, again, centered around safety, education, and stewardship, bringing awareness to the public. at all ages. I mean, we had people, we're teaching kids, for my granddaughter's 4 years old, she's had a kayak for 2 years. So there's really no limit as to who can enter this sport. And the age limit, I'm 60 years old. I mean, I've got people that are 10, 15 years older than me that are very active in this sport. So there's really no limits. And right now you can break your piggy bank and go to Walmart's and get a kayak for $175 and go out having no understanding what to do. And those are the consequences that we see all the time, unfortunately. So that's why I was here, just kind of get an understanding of what your mindset was on this particular subject. I wasn't going to say a word until something came up. I figured I'd just kind of sneak away. But that's what we're wanting to do. We're wanting to bring our educational programs to the city of Delaware. It doesn't cost you anything to participate, so to speak. We're looking at free programs. We're looking at if the public wants to, participate. We have many different levels of programs that we can institute. That makes sense.
So I think it's a good idea. I mean, football, baseball, basketball, those are all great, but I think the more that you can give the kids to experience, the more well-rounded they become. I guess my question is for you, Ted. I know the Y runs most of our programs. Whether this has to be a Y ran thing or not, I don't know. But how would you go about introducing classes? Would it be through the Y? Are there other means to do that?
I think we'd work with the Y, but I think we could work with this gentleman, and if they're willing to, do some of these programs or what you thought would be a good program in Delaware, I don't see why the Y wouldn't be.
No, we work with the Y as well. As a matter of fact, our most recent case is the Y down in Lebanon, Creek's countryside. We worked in getting 2 of their members certified in the AC Level 1 classifications. That way they can spread their education. Same with Outdoor Adventure Club down in Cincinnati. They work with 25 different schools throughout that region. Again, we just put them through certification so they can take the education. So that's something else that we do. We can't do it alone. We understand that. So as we have these certification classes, we bring people out of the Y, out of Parks and Rec, people that can then carry on this information to the community, again, because we know we can't do it all. But it has to start with us, obviously.
Yeah, just to get to your point, I mean, the Y doesn't have to do the program. I mean, if you were willing to do the program, I mean, I think we'd all support it. We would, try to plug it as much as we could to get as many people out there as we could.
I like the idea of Blue Limestone too, because I think it's an underutilized park. And I think that's a great way to get people to that park.
Yeah.
Well, and I think kayaking is one of those sports that you alluded to this. This is a lifelong sport. This is something that people can do at a very young age to an older age. It's not like, maybe baseball, softball, basketball, some of those sports that you generally don't have your entire life.
Fastest growing sport in the world.
Yeah, and our lakes and rivers aren't going anywhere. So I think, hopefully, I think it's a great idea. And I think that there is an interest in this community that this would tap into.
Yeah, I just recently found out the whitewater up here by 23 is some of the best around. During certain times, it's like pretty intense out there.
It took 4 of my teeth April 1st.
Oh, really? But one of the questions I did have was I've seen some of these other communities where they'll do a triathlon and replace the swimming portion with a kayaking portion. Yes. Have you been involved in any of those?
We haven't, but we're trying to instigate that here in Ohio. We see more and more of that happening elsewhere. It's just a matter of bringing that awareness here. But yeah, there's so much you can do.
Yeah, that's kind of a neat twist on it. But one of the things with the Olentangy is the flow levels are so inconsistent, and
that's the issue that we have. We want to talk about regulated releases. County Army Corps of Engineers, out of Huntington, West Virginia. They also control the gully as well as the New River down in West Virginia. We guide back in the 80s and 90s. So we understand what regulated control is, and it can be done. And they understand it too. And there's no reason why we can't present this concept to them with regards to this lake and this river here to have controlled releases. If they can bring people in on weekends, on special events, things like that, to hold races. You can modify that river very simply with some simple, rocks here, rock there, modular here that can be moved around in order to change the course. That can very easily be done. We talked to a company that's working, actually just put in the Oklahoma City water park. I don't know if you're familiar with it or not. $42 million spent. They made their ROI back in 2 years. People want these type of activities. You have a 19% gradient out there on the river that we need in order to create this type of run, if you will, this type of course. You can circulate, I'm thinking big, you can circulate that water out of the lake back into the lake in order to create that flow on a regular basis. So there's a lot of things that can be done because the resources are here. Getting the community behind it is obviously first and foremost. So that's where we want to come in because it's in my backyard. I lived in 43082 for 15 years, across from Central High School in Westerville. So I am somewhat part of, I don't live there anymore, I just moved, but I am somewhat part of Delaware. Kids went to school here, I understand it. So again, that's my platform, I guess. I appreciate the audience.
Sammy, if you could maybe, at the end of the meeting, give a card.
I have cards, I have some
Because
brochures.
like I said, I apologize. I just heard about this at lunch today with Mayor Riggle, and it's been kind of a busy afternoon, so I didn't really update you, Ted, so surprise.
Hopefully it wasn't a bad.
So,
All right, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, member comments.
Yes, I have one. An old neighbor of mine had intended to be here tonight to for the public comment section, but unfortunately he had some work issues as well. But he did text me some on my Facebook page, and he wanted to make sure I read this to everybody. He says he loves the dog park behind Myers, well designed, well maintained. He loves it, and his dogs love it as well. He wanted to make sure I mentioned that he thanks the Parks and Rec for doing such a good job on that dog park. He did mention though that could use better handles on the dog water station. I'm not sure if they're ergonomically designed as being a little bit of an issue. I myself have a 13-year-old dog. His dog park is my backyard, so I don't take him to the dog park too much anymore. But he also mentioned that the water park at the Y behind behind the Y, the splash pad, is also a superb design and well maintained. His grandchildren love that place a lot and rather spend their time with him at splash pad rather than at his house. So he said he's so proud of our parks in Delaware, and he again wanted to make sure I mentioned this, and he said thanks. He's a 30-year resident of the city, and he's seen a lot of changes, and he says it's all been good. So he wanted me to express his gratitude to the Parks and Rec.
Yep, we got that email, and we're going to look at those dog bowls out there, see what we can do.
Okay.
And I will tell the Parks for that when we put in those shade structures out there at the spring play, those were a big hit out there.
Yes, they are
yeah,
greatly appreciated.
used quite often.
Yes.
So you got to get there early to get your spot.
I have a couple of things. With me being out at Mingo, roughly 4 days a week, I've cleaned up cigarette butts one day, numerous ones that I swept up. I have some pictures of what I cleaned up. Also, dog poop on the tennis courts. I've cleaned up, and I've seen a lot of loose dogs running around Mingo. Lots of them. You know, I'll see somebody get out of their car, unleash the dog, takes off. You know, and I kind of feel like I become parent to my 50-some kids that I have in the program this first session this summer, and they're walking back and forth. Okay, so your dog might be nice to you, but they might not like his. You know, there's just a lot of things that the one net closest to the playground keeps sagging, but we keep going and tightening it up. I guess the tennis courts are kind of my my domain, so mean, if you want to see my pictures, I can. That's why I kind of brought up, how do we stop people from, smoking on the tennis courts and putting out their butts? There's been ashes and it's been a mess.
Okay. We'll look into that and see if we can't try to get on top of that a little bit. And the dogs off leash is something we've been noticing out there, so we're gonna try to look at that a little bit more. Our leash law is pretty old right now, and I don't want to say we're gonna update it, but there might be some things we could do to update that. It's pretty old. So.
I also I don't know if this is the job of the city or maybe just people should be a little more aware, but I too have noticed dogs off leashes, and I too get approached by dogs. I'm out running, I run a lot, I'm out in the city, I'm out in the parks. And every single time everybody says, oh, my dog won't hurt you, my dog is so nice. And I'm like, your dog is nice to you, but I'm running, and like I have been bit by dogs running. And so I just think it's a general, like people think their dog is never going to hurt anybody else. So I don't know if there's an education piece that the city can think about or do, but I would also say that as a person who lives in the city and has small children in the city, the dogs at the parks are getting, like there are a lot of dogs off leashes.
Okay. Well, it's good to hear this because we did get a few comments actually in the last few weeks about this. And yeah, I mean, it's not just if you leave your dog off a leash. I mean, there could be a kid that is allergic to dogs, and that dog comes up to him, and that kid could have a life-threatening situation.
Yes.
So it's not just that. And also, if that dog bites somebody, I mean, that could be legal action, and that dog could get euthanized. So I mean, there's lots of reasons to keep your dog on a leash, and I think we do need to maybe put some type of promotion out to educate folks a little bit more on that, and also let them know that we do have leash laws in the city. So.
And some people are just terribly afraid of dogs as well.
Yes,
Yeah.
terribly.
And I've always been around dogs, but I know
Yes.
whenever we walk a dog and people are walking the other way, we always take it off the path.
Right.
Some people are just afraid of dogs.
And we have options too. We have a dog park, so you can go
Right.
take your dog there and unleash it there. So
It's a lovely dog park.
yes, and so you can unleash your dog.
Yes.
So yes, there's options.
All right. Any other comments? Okay. Meeting is adjourned at 8:09.